I witnessed over 170 sightings.
We just finished up, loaded our chainsaws and stuff in the back of the truck when we spotted a strange light coming through the trees.
Just light coming through the trees.
And then there was these white, orange type of balls.
They tend to float in the air.
A large glowing object, a UFO.
These balls are typically orange in color or white in color and are seen hovering, moving slowly.
95% plus of the UFO databases, no matter where you go, are these odd balls of light.
The majority of UFO sightings are of rapidly moving balls of light seen at night.
I saw these creatures standing over me and I just flipped out.
I don't want to find something on my body and say, gee, I wonder if aliens put it there. I want to know for sure.
In the last 15 years, there have been thousands of accounts of alien encounters, abductions, and disappearances.
Well, I'm driving down to Southern Oregon. I got a phone call about a sighting that this young couple had recently. It appears that it is a light, an unusual light, behaving erratically in the night sky. What's unusual about this sighting is that it lasted approximately 3 hours, which is considerably a long time for a UFO sighting. And I think the only way to determine exactly what they saw is to meet them, go over it step by step, make sure that all the details are covered, and of course what's most important is see what kind of people they are. Lance, can you show me how you looked at the object through the scope on your rifle?
Sure. I came out and I saw it. I kind of got it with my eye, and then I put my scope up and I looked straight in front of me like that, and I could see it, and then instantly when I got it in the scope, it bolted on me, and I had to kind of glimpse out and then bring it back, and I caught it again up a little bit higher to the right.
And I was like, come on, let me see, let me see, let me see. And he's like, holy crud, it's a jellyfish.
That's exactly what it resembled, was a jellyfish. I thought, whoa.
You mentioned to me that it was putting off what appeared to be beams of light or electrical energy. Can you tell me more about that?
It looked to me like lightning, you know, on a cloudy night when you see lightning rolling through the sky.
It was constantly throwing these beams off, like your hand. And
almost if it was sensing for something.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like taking pictures in a very technological fashion, more advanced than we know.
When I first got it in the scope, I saw it and it arced. It went at an angle probably like that, and it instantly moved straight up at a right.
It was so erratic that
I've never seen anything move that quick. Never in my life ever seen anything move that quick. I mean, just that fast and it was gone.
In nearby Washington State, an aura of mysticism and menace hangs over the Yakima region. This is the home of Bigfoot and other apparitions.
At Yakima, all varieties of the UFO experience have been recorded. Balls of light, what might appear to be spacecraft, unusual sounds, creatures, entities, beings, if you will, even what we might consider to be abductions. The most common unidentified flying object seen at Yakima is the ball of light or the sphere of light. These balls are typically orange in color or white in color and are seen hovering, moving slowly. They appear to be inquisitive. They, in some cases, have followed motorists in their cars. UFO sightings have been going on at Yakima at least 30 years by the written record, but there are a lot of strong indications that these objects have been seen over 50 years or more.
There is such a good record of sightings on the Yakima Reservation because fire lookouts have to log every unusual light in case it is a fire. They don't just see fire and smoke. They see balls of light in the air.
I have seen roughly 100 lights, or maybe a few more or a few less over the years. I'd have to go back through my logbooks and count them up. I've been a lookout for 34 years, and this is all is my area, plus some of it over here isn't on my map that I'm still responsible for. And when I see a fire, I have to take a cross shot and then pin it down in a little spot.
Stella Washines has seen strange lights on many occasions.
I was home with my daughter. My husband had went off to, I think, a basketball game, took our two sons with him, and it started to get toward dusk. The sun was going down, and so I told my daughter to shut the drapes in the living room. And she was just partially closed the drapes, and she was standing there staring out the window. And I said, "Close the drapes." And she's standing there, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm looking at all these airplanes out here." The dog was banging into the door, and he just like bowled past me. He just went and wedged himself under the table and stayed there. And I was really afraid, and he was more afraid of being outside than he was of me, chasing him out of the house, and he never came in the house. It was different kinds. There was ones that were kind of triangular shaped, and then there was these white, orange type balls. But finally, they were really too close for comfort.
Hotspots of strange lights show up throughout the world, from Yakima to Scandinavia, Australia, and Britain. Security cameras at this shopping mall in northern England recorded a ball of light for 30 minutes. It drifted around the building and was captured on 3 cameras. What are the people at Yakima and elsewhere seeing? Perhaps the beginning of an answer can be found in 18th century New England.
One of my first interests in the field of anomalies was the dark day of May 19th, 1780, during which time the northeastern coast, New England coast of North America suddenly became dark. It started to become dark in the early morning, and by noon it was so dark that people required candles and lanterns. There were odd and eerie sounds and sights and greenish flashes, and people thought it was the end of the world. And they were begging for the men of the Enlightenment, the name for scientists, to explain this phenomenon.
This incident inspired Persinger to investigate strange reports of UFO lights. He plotted 6,000 bizarre events by location and year, and then compared the reports with high-energy phenomena like tornadoes, hurricanes, and earthquakes. Professor Persinger discovered that waves of UFO sightings, called UFO flaps, preceded earthquakes by up to 6 months. So he called in an expert on earthquakes.
What I find interesting is to try to associate these balls of light with earthquakes, because we know that large earthquakes generate very bright lights in the sky.
In 1966, during an earthquake in Japan, this glow lit up the night sky. Persinger and Durr set out to discover if earthquakes were generating their balls of light. They found a strange cluster of UFO sightings in Colorado. Beginning in 1963, millions of gallons of toxic waste from a munitions factory were pumped down a 2-mile deep well. Unfortunately, the fluids lubricated a fault system, and over 5 years, 1,500 earthquakes were recorded.
You have a fault zone where the rocks are pressed hard together, but if you put some lubrication on that surface, then they're going to slip. Well, we're putting a lot of pressure into the ground, and the ground is cracking and it's bending. And every time you have some sort of strain, you have an elastic wave that's radiated out from it. You can think of a rubber band that's stretched, and you can come along with a pair of scissors and cut it, and there's all this energy released as the pieces fly apart.
A slow ripple of minor tremors moved away from the injection point. It traveled at speeds of between 30 and 80 miles per month. And just before the quakes reached a district, a rash of UFO lights were reported.
So it would be fluid injection, strain, UFO reports, earthquakes, in that repetitive cycle.
Could UFO lights and earthquakes be linked? It's possible, for light can be created by rocks.
Triboluminescence means light produced by friction, the rubbing together of two surfaces. Many minerals produce this phenomenon, but one of the best known is quartz. And so I have some quartz here with which I will demonstrate this.
This is the first ever film of the release of triboluminescent energy by rocks. There is another possibility. When the Earth moves, the enormous forces crush the crystals that form the rocks. Pulverizing crystals with pressure can release light.
Piezoelectrics literally means pressure electricity, and when we stress or scratch or compress rock crystals such as quartz, it is found that there is a generation of charge within the crystal, and sometimes this can lead to the evolution of light, tiny sparks and flashes within the crystal itself.
Alan Mills can demonstrate this by crushing almost any crystal, in this case, sugar cubes. Crushing rock under much greater pressure in an earthquake zone will do the same. In complete darkness, cameras catch the flash of light released from the sugar cube. But there is a problem. No one knows how this energy could travel from deep in the earth to become a floating ball of light. What's more, there are those who feel Persinger and Durr's theory about balls of light preceding earthquakes is faulty.
In the laboratory, we tried to recreate the same pressures and temperatures that you would find down 5 or 10 miles down in the earth where large earthquakes would nucleate. What we came up with in the model that we developed was that you actually can use the frictional heating of the rocks as they slide past each other in the fault zone during an earthquake to make the rock so hot that it boils away the water. And once you turn the water to steam, then this becomes a very good electric insulator.
Dr. Lochner says that this steam stores electric charges, like a lightning storm underground.
The fault zone itself provides a conduit for the electric charge then to come right up to the Earth's surface. The mechanism that we've developed really requires the earthquake itself. It's not going to give you earthquake lights before the earthquake.
If lights are linked to tremors before or after, does this explain the UFOs seen at Yakima? Persinger and Durr found that the lights do appear above local fault lines.
This is per month. The faces, there we go. These are UFO reports along one direction, a series coming in the other direction, and then a quake should be predictable right in the center. There it is, the asterisk. We found that these balls of light would suddenly become more intense and more frequent during the same months when there was an increase in earthquake activity in the vicinity of the reservation. We also found something else out, that whatever triggers these processes are pretty subtle. We found that if the strain was present and about ready to produce an earthquake, balls of light, called UFO reports, were common. But if there was a sudden geomagnetic impact, a massive increase from geomagnetic activity, then the phenomenon was more intense.
An increase in our geomagnetic activity can be caused by the solar wind, a stream of charged particles that blows off the sun. When that wind hits us, the Earth's magnetic field is distorted. Professor Persinger suspects that when the wind blows, we also get balls of light and reports of UFO sightings. However, Persinger and Durr's research into earthquakes does not explain all close encounters with UFOs.
The tectonic strain theory of UFOs has been designed to try to answer the question, why so many of these glowing balls of light seen at Yakima? But the problem is that mixed in with sightings of balls of light have been other objects. There's also been close encounters.
We deliberately exclude close encounters types of sightings.
What might appear to be spacecraft, there appear to be abductions.
What do you want with me? What do you want with me?
In the last 15 years, tens of thousands of people have come forward to describe their experiences at the hands of alien abductors. They recount tales that range from the tranquil to the terrifying. Messages of goodwill, horrific medical examinations, and the removal of fetuses and hybrid babies. Some people claim they have been abducted while driving, others while sleeping. One of the most famous and convincing cases occurred more than 20 years ago in Arizona.
My name is Travis Walton. I'm presently employed as a purchasing agent. I was working in these woods as a tree sawyer back in 1975.
Well, my name is Michael Rogers, and in 1975 I was a logger right here on this spot. I was the crew boss of a group of guys, of which Travis Walton was a member. And today, that's what I'm still doing. I'm still doing the same kind of work.
We just finished up, loaded our chainsaws and stuff in the back of the truck when we spotted a strange light coming through the trees.
Just light coming through the trees.
The longer I looked, the stranger it was. One of the guys in the back yelled out, "It's a spaceship."
Travis jumped out of the truck to go get a closer look at it.
As I hurried towards it, I noticed that it wasn't moving away.
It was a large glowing object, a disc-shaped object, a UFO.
A disc, a metallic disc hovering there less than 100 feet away.
The color of the object itself was sort of a golden color, like the color of metal out of a blast furnace, you know, the color of steel.
Now, this was not some little hazy ball of glowing gas off in the distance. This was, I mean, it was a clearly defined mechanical object.
It just struck me as being quite perfect and quite beautiful.
It kind of had a sort of a rumbling sort of effect. It kind of like shook you inside, had a power to it, but it was kind of like almost below the threshold of hearing.
At one point there where the thing started moving and started making more noise, and it started wobbling and it kind of raised up.
And the guys in the truck were yelling at me, "Stop, what are you doing?" You know, and get away from there and all this stuff.
And this thing by this time was making a lot of strange sounds.
And so I was having second thoughts about what I was doing.
He crouched down behind a log.
I just dove for cover.
You could see the truck shaking, and I could feel it through the steering wheel, and it was just shaking like this. And that's when things got really hairy.
I made up my mind right then, I'm getting out of here. And so I raised up to go.
This beam came out of this thing like a bright bluish beam of energy of some kind, and it struck him in the chest and head area.
And wham, something hit me.
Just momentarily, it was like blinding. I couldn't see for like a second. It just was like an explosion going off in front of him. It blew him back.
It felt a little bit like a physical blow. It felt a little bit like an electric shock, too.
And he landed way back over here.
I just blacked out.
And that's when I hit the gas. We realized that we had left Travis here. He was probably hurt. From every appearance, he was hurt. If he wasn't dead, he was certainly hurt. We all got out of the truck at one point and kept discussing about it, kept looking back over here and talking. And after, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes of this conversation, we finally decided we better go back.
I regained consciousness very slowly. I was kind of in and out. I didn't know where I was. I was very disoriented. I just in and out. I eventually kind of remembered what had happened, you know, walking up to the object and being hit by something. So I kind of surmised that I'd been hurt and that they had taken me to a hospital, and that's where I was.
Took a flashlight and shined it in the road down here and up in the clearing. We didn't see right off the bat. Travis isn't laying there where he'd fallen. He wasn't there.
There was an object lying across my chest. The light above me was sort of a rectangular fixture. I was lying on a hard surface. It seemed very hot and humid. But, you know, the main sensation was just this pain, this overpowering pain.
They conducted a 4-day search the next day and for the next 3 days after that. A very extensive search all over this entire area, which expanded out and out and out, and large area. A lot of men on horseback, dogs, a lot of men on foot, vehicles, helicopters, airplanes, you know. Couldn't find any trace of him. Never a trace of Travis. Never a trace of Travis. Never a trace of Travis.
When I finally got where I could focus my eyes, so I could hear the sounds of movement around me. I knew there was someone there, but I just, at first, assumed it was doctors, you know, people working on treating me. But when I finally got where my vision cleared, I saw these creatures standing over me, and I just flipped out. It was, you know, I instantly knew that I wasn't in a hospital, and I just flipped out. They came towards me. I started screaming at them, and I grabbed an object and swung it at them, screaming. They stopped all simultaneously, sort of extended their hands, and then all at once they all three turned and left the room. And there in the doorway is what I took immediately to be a person, a human being. He took me quickly down this hallway into a room where there were some other people waiting, people who looked like him. They led me over to this table and started to put me on this table, and you know, I started to have major misgivings about, you know, was I being rescued, or what was really going to happen to me here. And one of them put a mask over my face, so it sort of looked like an oxygen mask, and I tried to grab it away, and I managed to get my hand on it, but I couldn't pull it away before I lost consciousness. The next thing I knew, I woke up. I came to quickly, and it was cold and dark, and I looked up, and there was a light above, and I saw a craft hovering above me, and it just shot up into the sky. I looked around. I was lying next to a highway.
Travis Walton was missing for 5 days.
It's it's a mystery to me. You know, I can't understand what was going on there.
What makes abductions hard to dismiss is the close similarity of the experiences described.
Even from the very earliest UFO reports, people noticed that there were considerable similarities in the stories. What I found from this comparative study was that there were a great deal of similarity in the stories. Most start out with a capture, go to examination, and on very rare occasions, a kind of spiritual experience. There's also a great deal of similarity in the content, the description of the beings, the descriptions of the ship itself, the feelings and sensations and strange effects that people report. These are all extremely similar from one story to another. The sequence of events staying so regular is quite peculiar, given the fact that these are lengthy stories, they're quite bizarre. They would be excellent opportunities for people to simply rearrange some of the episodes or some of the events within an episode, but that very seldom ever happens.
Abductees report that their alien kidnappers come from various star systems and distant suns. They include the Pleiades, Betelgeuse, Barnard's Star, and Zeta Reticuli. They are all light years from Earth, and no signs of life have been found emanating from them.
I have, in my opinion, definitely had contact with something non-human, independent, very smart, and it appears has a great concern for my soul personally. But when you get abducted, as it's called, and put on a table and reduced to nothing more than a piece of flesh, and you have needles put in you and you're scared to death, it really gets your attention. What I'm doing here is I'm illustrating various scenes that are going to be in a film that I'm producing about the so-called abduction phenomenon, or as I like to call it, the visitor phenomenon. It has a less threatening sort of connotation to it. So I've been doing sort of accurate portrayals of the way the beings are actually seen, and these beings you see here are actually based on information that I obtained from working with a hypnotherapist about 4 years ago.
So why do the various alien races choose different parts of the world to fly to?
One peculiarity of the stories, one element that would suggest there might be some cultural differences, is that while in North America the small gray aliens have been the most common, in Britain the commonest alien has been the tall, blonde Nordic type. In South America you tend to get more of a variety of aliens.
But could these images be generated solely by the mind? The brain is an electromagnetic organ where there are billions of electrical pulses every second. If something interferes with those signals, all kinds of strange things can occur. Michael Persinger suspects there may be a link between reports of abductions and his theories on the UFO balls of light phenomenon.
The question of the relationship between Earthlights, luminous phenomena, and abduction experiences is, I think, only marginally overlapping. The vast majority of these balls of light, which are seen at a distance, are physical phenomena tied to strain within the Earth's crust. The very few cases where people rush up to the light and have very predictable experiences, those individuals are indeed being stimulated by the balls of light. But the recent case of the abduction phenomenon, where allegedly millions of people have been visited in their bedrooms, it is much more a neuroscience problem than a geophysical one.
Persinger has built a chamber to test his theory. It is completely soundproofed. The subject sits in darkness, blindfolded. A weak magnetic field is generated in a special helmet. A computer controls the field. Persinger varies the shape of the electromagnetic wave transmitted through the brain. It generates different types of mystical experiences.
The kinds of things that people report in the chamber when their experiences are amplified by applying these complex, weak magnetic fields would be feelings of moving through a tube, feelings of floating through a cave, feelings of being detached, feeling another mind speaking through theirs, the sensations of spinning and of having body vibrations as if something is moving through the body, the experiences of sudden memories, intense memories from childhood. Now, they may not be memories from childhood, but that's how they are labeled. Sometimes we have had cases where a person feels that they may be dying and they can see the white light. And we can produce that with a certain kind of magnetic field pattern. These experiences are probably very common. Probably of the 6 billion brains that exist on this planet, the majority of us have had something like that. But we have culture that tells us how to explain it. So if you're in a laboratory with people you trust, then the experience of a sense of presence, even if it's aversive and frightening, will be looked at in that context. As one subject said, I know there was no one in the chamber with me because I saw the door closed or I felt the door closed, but yet I knew there was someone in the room with me. Another subject felt this presence, they felt something tugging on their leg, but they knew that couldn't be. So they labeled it as an experience that they attributed to the field because they knew they were in an experiment. But if you took the same experience when you're by yourself late at night in your bedroom, and the cultural label is, it's an alien abduction, how would you interpret it?
Professor Persinger can create apparitions using weak magnetic fields. But how can they be generated outside the laboratory? We are all bathed in strong electromagnetic radiation. It comes from sources all around us. Paranormal investigator Albert Boudin has linked alien abduction experiences to electrical fields. He researches the stray electromagnetic radiation created by high-tension power lines, radio waves, and other sources of energy. Abductees may be particularly sensitive. Boudin has investigated 50 cases. The abductees share one factor in common.
I've found that these abductees have something called a major electrical event where they've been struck by lightning, or been near lightning, or have had major electrocution, and this has changed their bodies permanently.
I have had an electric shock. It wasn't one which took me to hospital or anything, but it did throw me across the room. I had the electric shock before I had any contact with so-called aliens.
If you look at these people, they almost invariably have a long history of strange experiences, sometimes reaching back to childhood. And their abduction experience is just one in a whole family of experiences that they've had throughout their lives.
UFO experiences, aliens, bendy men, psychic things happening.
But these aren't ordinary people. These are people who are hypersensitive to these fields. These fields don't affect most people.
Electrical phenomena, television switching itself on and off, the video playing to itself for half an hour.
If they then go and live in what's called electromagnetic hotspot, they will start to have all kinds of sensations. They will suddenly see a bright light, which is a stimulation of the visual cortex.
Within this vicinity, there are microwave transmitters, radio transmitters, electrical substations. We seem to have everything virtually.
They will have hallucinations, which is stimulation of the temporal lobe. All different kinds of parts of the brain are sometimes kicked into action.
There's other experiences like allergies, there's tingling sensations under the skin, So you've got to look a lot deeper. You can't just look at the aliens.
They're dreamlike very often, these experiences, and researchers who are very keen on impressing the extraterrestrial aspect on this will filter out all of these absurdities. Trolls piloting spaceships, garden gnomes leading witnesses into enclosed areas, a dog lying in a carpeted flying saucer. These things occur over and over again, and it's quite obvious to me that the source of this imagery comes from the human unconscious rather than from Zeta Reticuli.
I genuinely believed that the experience had happened. It took me about 2 years to come round to actually being logical about it and looking at it in a logical way.
This is an environmental health issue, and in fact alien abduction experiences are just a very small part of a much broader issue, which is electromagnetic pollution.
Nearly all accounts of abductions are recalled under hypnosis. But how reliable is hypnosis? We all have strong memories of our pasts. However, false memories, even without hypnosis, can be created if the subject wants to please their therapist. They recall what they think the hypnotist wants to hear. Even without hypnosis, as events fade and are dimly remembered, we create new memories to fill in the gaps, reinventing the past. It's all too easy to create false memories. A Canadian psychologist gave volunteers what they thought were personality tests. The psychologist used positive feedback to implant the idea that they saw a mobile on the day they were born. He told them that they were exceptional personalities and that this was potentially due to their brains being stimulated by the mobile. One group was asked what their first memory was. None of them recalled a mobile. Another group were regressed to their first memory using hypnosis. Almost half reported memories of a mobile on the first day of life. But it's thought that babies' memories do not begin to function until after the first 3 months of life. The vast majority of abductions are recalled under hypnosis by people who were alone at the time. Yet there are cases of multiple abductions. And cases like police officer Alan Godfrey's, where additional eyewitnesses corroborated the story.
As I got near to this object, it became apparent to me that what I was looking at wasn't something that I would normally find in the early hours of the morning in Todmorden, you know.
3 other police officers reported seeing a UFO in the sky that night.
It was a nuts and bolts thing. It wasn't an hallucination, it was real. This object was 20 foot wide. It's 14 feet high. It's diamond shaped. The bottom half of it was rotating, the top half was stationary. It had a bank of dark windows, or could have been paneling.
Under hypnosis, he described his abduction by aliens.
Now in this room, there is a very tall humanoid, for want of a better word. He's about 6 foot to 6'6", very tall, thin, with a beard. He had a skull cap on and he had this white gown on. What happens then is, I'm asked to get on this bed. And then these horrible little things come. They are a lamp-shaped head with black dark eyes. That's the best way I can describe them. And there was about 7 or 8 of them.
But is this close encounter a false memory created by hypnosis?
The actual account which Alan gives under hypnosis is very compelling, because when you fit together the jigsaw of what he remembers consciously and can tell us consciously with what he can only remember under hypnosis. It ties together. For instance, at the beginning of Alan's connection with the UFO, consciously, he tells us that he thought it was a bus. He realized on second looking again that it wasn't a bus, and he decided to drive on and have a look at it. Under hypnosis, he says it's a bus. It's not a bus.
A bus. It's not a bus.
And you can see an expression on his face of incredulity. He does not believe what he's looking at.
It's like a flying saucer.
A lot of people think that Alan Godfrey has been led by the hypnotist or influenced by the hypnotist or myself. This is not true. All the doctors I have used, none of them in fact believe in UFOs. They're intrigued as to the witness's experience. They don't have an explanation for it, but they basically do not believe in UFOs. These doctors, if you would, stand between me and the witness.
Jesus. There's a light. Shine me a light.
Apart from the fact that it's the doctors who carry out most of the interrogation without using leading questions, on at least 2 occasions, Alan Godfrey has rebelled and refused to answer any further questions. On one occasion, he almost jerked himself out of hypnosis and said, "I'm not answering you. I haven't to answer that."
I haven't to answer that.
Why haven't you to answer that?
Because when I think about it, it hurts.
It has to be said that at the time that Alan Godfrey had his experience and underwent hypnosis, the accounts of alien abductions were virtually, if not completely, unknown in the United Kingdom. I had certainly never heard of them. I don't know of anybody who had. Hypnosis seems to be the only tool, at least it's the only tool that I am aware of, to probe missing and confused memories. It's not a foolproof method, but if it hadn't been used, the abduction side of all the experiences of amnesiacs all over the world would never have come to light.
These are robots. Mm-hmm. They're not human.
I honestly believe that what happened to me on hypnosis really happened.
Abductees such as Alan Godfrey are not convinced by the various attempts to discredit the memories they have recalled under hypnosis. Furthermore, some argue, what's to explain the rash of reports of aliens who have left strange marks on the bodies of their abductees?
I will wake up with injuries to my body I can't explain. I can't explain them. I don't want to find something on my body and say, gee, I wonder if aliens put it there. I want to know for sure. So when I go to bed, I'm very keen on what's what on my body. So to wake up with a 4-inch long cut out of nowhere underneath your long johns on your leg that burns is a big question mark. And this stuff happens to me fairly often. The other thing that happens, of course, you get these triangular marks. You hear about them so much. It's real. People are really getting these. I get them. And what's fascinating about it is that they're identical to the ones the other individuals are getting. You look at my photographs of body injury, they look like everybody else's.
There are also reports of implants. One abductee even paid for an operation to have one removed. Jesse Long believes he was abducted as a child and that something was implanted in his leg.
They don't seem concerned with me while I'm on the table screaming and yelling and wanting to get away, because these experiences are not pleasant at all. They're some of the most frightening things you could ever experience.
There it is. There's your
triangular shard.
Or if you like, I'd lay it on the skin like that next to it. And let me blot off the blood.
This is a photograph taken of me sitting on the porch. You can actually see the scoop mark in my leg where the object was put in. The object always hurt for those 34 years. I mean, I had to wear my socks below them. Here's the big blunt end. And then we have the very tip of it, which is now here. So that when they're laid together, it forms a triangular-shaped shard.
Electron micrographs show it's only common glass, containing no elements alien to our planet.
Had silicon and magnesium and zinc and silver and calcium. Just recently I had it analyzed further. They found titanium. In addition to that, they've also found sulfur, 24% sulfur.
I know that night what I saw was real. It was damn real. Now what I don't know is what was it and where did it come from?
It's a mystery to me. You know, I can't understand what was going on there.
In recent years, scientists and researchers have proposed some very credible explanations for the UFO and abduction phenomena. So why do some of us remain believers? Even if there is an explanation for the balls of light, what about UFOs in the form of craft? And what about the thousands of people who have reported encounters with extraterrestrials? Are these experiences all to be doubted? Perhaps there is a part of us that really wants to believe that we are not alone, that there is life beyond us, reaching out